pure web-based. But obviously digital, when we talk digital, your digital promotion of your product would be talking to or speaking to and supporting all of the other channels as well. And here's a very important thing. There's $1 trillion in U.S. food. But it's helpful to understand what that pie is all about. So retail is about 1/2. Food service is just under 1/2. And then there's this cute little line where the specialty foods fit in. You take retail and food service specialty, you're talking about $63 billion. Why is that relevant? Because that's where the growth is. It's very simple. Don't talk to me unless you're going to give yourself a good run for the money, and you might want to do that in a place where there's growth. And then you have a key understanding of who the players are. So everybody talks about food. So here's an interesting thing. I meet Australians in the food business. And they say, and you ask them, so where do you think your product can go? 9 out of 10 Australians who've been to America will say, oh, Whole Foods. I definitely see it in Whole Foods. Because Whole Foods is a pretty market, and it's definitely organic and natural, and it emphasizes that because it speaks to Generation Y, and it's a lovely market. But here's a funny piece of information. How many stores in America? It's a good question to ask, right? Turns out there are 35,652 to be exact, but 36,000, let's round up, doors that sell food in the United States of America. How many stores does Whole Foods, the one every Australian says, I'm going to Whole Foods, how many do they have across the entire United States? 278. Now, Gary will tell you that we've made an arrangement with 2 stores, 2 chains, called Winn-Dixie and Publix. You send your product from Australia to Whole Foods. What does that mean? You might get lucky and meet the Whole Foods Midwest buyer, and he's going to put you in 40 stores in the Chicago area. That's great, but that's not 278 stores. And then if the bloke in New York will give you an appointment, that's really nice, or you may go to 4 shows, which costs you a lot of money, to shake that guy's hand, but then he's going to say, who's your distributor? You got to get from New York to Chicago, where are you landing? Whereas Publix and Winn-Dixie, those are 2 stores in Florida, Florida-based, they're the Southeast. We have direct tie-in. We do a presentation of your product. I'm going to show you what a presentation looks like if we have some time. And they have 2,200 stores between them. And you know where your product lands? In Atlanta. Container goes and it lands, and you're done. And 2,200 stores, ladies and gentlemen, is more than all your Kohl's and Woolworth combined in this whole country. Right? So why would you go to 278 stores? And I'm not down on Whole Foods. They're a beautiful organization. But if you want a quick buck and you want to see if your white-labeled rice product works, I'd get you a buyer. I'd get you the rice buyer, the dry foods buyer at Publix, because that's a good ROI, good return on your investment. And here's an example of how spread out. America's pretty big. Supply chain's an issue, and this goes to the shade company and the blinds company and the panels company. And some of you not in food. It's a big place. So you think about concentrations. Whole Foods, as you can see, is all over the place, as opposed to the example of Winn-Dixie and Publix that I just gave. And then you think about what your strategies are. Well, is it about population density? How many people are where? Does Balance want to talk to the places where everybody's kind of nervous and there are too many of them? Or is it quality versus quantity? What's your value proposition? Or is it per capita? Turns out Whole Foods is smart. The reason they're so spread is they're going around this map based on income. So if I'm the blinds company, Anthony, I think you'll agree, that might make sense. You've got a premium product, let's talk about them. And then you're going to talk about margins. And even though this is meant to be food, this is a fairly good guideline. And it's also an opportunity to show you a little bit of what we do when we're helping an Australian company. You could go through this graph, and you can all have copies of it. God bless you, no worries. But I'm going to keep it simple with the math. If you leave Melbourne and you land in San Francisco at $2.50, your consumer, your end user at the store, has to buy your product at $4.99. In other words, double your price that has your profit built in is what we need to make sure the end user is going to pay. That's a fair guideline that summarizes this piece of the story. The number that you care about, if you work with us, is what do I land at that makes me money? If I can make some money at $2.50, I'm happy. We worry about the rest. From your $2.50, you will pay the broker or agent fee. That's about 5%. Everything else is above your $2.50, other than your cost of delivering it there. And look at that. You're removing that 20 to 40% importer because it doesn't ever need to cost that kind of money. And we of course help you with that. But so if you land in San Francisco at $2.50 and you're happy and you made money, then the next question is, what are your competitors selling at? And if you walk into Whole Foods and your competitor is paying $5 for something that isn't that tasty, you're in good shape. And we talk about your value proposition. So every one of you here in this room has your elevator speech about your value proposition. It's our job to zero in on it and to identify a trend. With Tony, we talked about an obvious value proposition. 3. Okay? Your product is sustainable. It meets a niche need, and we talked about niche markets for your product. Talking about multi-panels, great product. It has a lot of buzzwords where there's uptick. So in this slide, we're talking about natural organic. In your case, it's sustainable, but that works. With Anthony, on the shades and the blinds, you've zeroed in, if I understood it, in a cultural acumen in Australia. You're making it easy to choose your product. You're making it palatable. You got the jingle. You did all that stuff that was invented with those baby boomers in America, by the way, but you're doing it in Australia. You're doing it very well. You should be commended for that. But now you want to tweak and say, is my value proposition ready for 300 million Americans? And we've got to figure that out for you by zeroing in on where's the uptick, where's the regional opportunity, and how quick and easy can we make this so that you don't get overwhelmed by the American pie or map. We talk about forces driving growth in your industries. So Nick's got a number of organic byproducts of things you're involved in. Organic's the way to go. It's pretty obvious. That's where you have tremendous buying power. The baby boomers are still buying it, and Gen Y is driving it. So between the two of them, you got 2/3 of America looking for good products. You look at the life cycle of these value propositions, and you think about what the consumers in America are buying and what their buying patterns are, or what they're thinking when they're making a purchase. Again, I'm going very quickly, but as you can see, environmental concerns, social concerns, these are the things that matter. So it's good for me, good for the world, and it also has to taste good. That's sort of the way folks think. In food, you then talk about who the key players are. And as I said, a lot of Australians think it's all about Whole Foods. Not exactly.